Your words are either building your authority or destroying it. Every single time you open your mouth, something is happening to the way people perceive you. Either they are leaning in or they are tuning out. Either your credibility is growing or it is quietly eroding. Either you are becoming the kind of man whose words carry genuine weight, or you are becoming background noise in rooms that needed your leadership. Most men never think about this. They do not sit down and ask themselves, what is actually happening when I speak? They do not consider the invisible transaction that occurs every time they open their mouth in a room full of people who are watching, listening, and forming conclusions about them in real time. They speak reactively. They fill silence because silence feels uncomfortable. They repeat opinions they absorbed from somewhere else because developing their own requires more work. They speak quickly because slow feels like weakness. They avoid hard truths because hard truths feel like conflict. They qualify everything because certainty feels dangerous. They apologize before statements that require no apology. They hedge before claims they actually believe, and then they wonder why nobody truly listens. They wonder why their words do not command the respect they believe they deserve. They wonder why they are present in the room but somehow not felt in it. They wonder why people nod politely but do not actually move, why conversations seem to happen around them rather than because of them. The answer is not complicated, but it requires a level of honesty that most men are not fully prepared to sit with. You have not learned how to speak with authority yet. Not real authority. Not the kind that does not need volume to be felt. Not the kind that makes people lean forward when you finally open your mouth. Not the kind that builds a reputation so solid that your silence carries as much weight as your words. That kind of authority is not a personality trait. It is not something you either have or you do not have. It is not reserved for men who were born with deep voices or natural confidence or the right family name. It is not luck. It is not charisma in the genetic sense. It is built deliberately, consistently, through a specific set of principles that most men were never taught and never went looking for. And that changes today. Because what I'm about to share with you are not suggestions, not communication tips for a better morning meeting, not a list of tricks to seem more interesting at dinner parties. These are 5 laws, the kind that once understood and truly applied will change the way you are perceived in every room you enter, in your family, among your peers, in every relationship and every environment where your presence and your words either build something or quietly cost you something. These are the 5 laws of the Resonant Gavel. If you are choosing to be the man who commands, comment the word command below. If you're just making noise, keep scrolling. 1. The man who says less makes every word hit harder. Learn to make your silence louder than other men's noise. Watch the man who talks too much. He is in every room, every family gathering, every meeting, every conversation. He has an opinion before the question is finished. He has an answer before the problem is understood. He fills every silence with sound because silence makes him uncomfortable, and discomfort for him is something that must be immediately corrected. Watch how people listen to him. They listen with their eyes and not their ears. They wait politely for him to finish the way you wait for a commercial to end. His words land and immediately evaporate. They leave no residue, no weight, no lasting impression, and he cannot understand why. He spoke the most, he contributed the most sound, he was present and vocal and engaged, and yet somehow he was the least heard person in the room. Here's why. Words, like currency, derive their value from scarcity. Think about what happens to money when a government prints too much of it. The supply increases, the value per unit falls. What once bought something meaningful now buys nothing at all. The same principle governs every word that leaves your mouth. A man who spends money carelessly on things that do not matter signals to everyone around him that he does not understand value. A man who spends words carelessly on thoughts that are not fully formed, on filler and noise and the verbal equivalent of nervous energy signals exactly the same thing. He does not understand the value of what he is spending, and people stop treating his words as valuable because he himself is treating them as cheap. The great Roman philosopher and statesman Cicero, one of the most powerful orators in the history of human civilization, understood this with complete clarity. He said that a room is silenced not by the man who speaks the most, but by the man who speaks with the most precision. Precision is not about using complicated language. It is not about crafting perfect sentences before you speak. It is not about sounding educated or impressive or deliberately mysterious. It is about stripping everything away that does not serve the point. The filler words, the verbal tics, the unnecessary qualifications, the repetition that adds length without adding weight, the apologies at the beginning of statements that should need no apology. Every is a crack in your foundation. Every you know is a signal that you are not sure of what you were about to say. Every I mean or sort of or kind of is a small but measurable reduction in the authority of whatever comes after it. Strip them out. Not all at once, not perfectly from the first day, but with the deliberate and consistent intention of a man who understands that every word he speaks is either adding to his reputation or subtracting from it. There are no neutral words. When you speak, every word is a choice, and every choice either increases or decreases the weight of everything that follows. Here is the deeper truth beneath this law. The men who have historically commanded the most respect in any room were not the ones who said the most. They were the ones who made you feel, when they finally did speak, that something real was about to happen. They trained the people around them through consistent behavior. They spoke selectively, they spoke precisely, and over time, that pattern became a reputation. People begin to wait for your words. They begin to give your silence the same attention they give your speech, because you have taught that room through consistent behavior that what comes next will be worth receiving. That is what it means to make your silence louder than other men's noise. Not absence, not withholding, but the kind of earned quiet that a room feels before you speak, because you have taught that room through months and years of discipline that what comes next will be worth receiving. That is the economy of truth. Not silence for its own sake, but the deliberate, intentional practice of making every word earn its place before it is spoken. Start today. Before your next conversation, ask yourself one question. Does this word serve the point, or does it just fill the space? If the answer is space, remove it. If you are ready to make your words mean something, drop this below. My words have weight. 2. When you rush your words, you tell the room you are afraid. Slow down and let them wait for you. There is a sound that anxiety makes. You have heard it your whole life, and you probably recognize it immediately when someone else is doing it. High-pitched, rapid, slightly breathless words tumbling into each other without enough space between them. Sentences that end on an upward inflection as though every statement is secretly a question waiting for approval. That sound is not neutral. It communicates something to everyone in the room before the content of the words even registers. It communicates that the speaker is not fully at ease, that they are aware on some level of the possibility that they might not be heard or accepted or respected. And that awareness, expressed through the tempo and tone of their voice, produces the very outcome they were afraid of. Because when you rush your words, you are not just speaking fast, you are making a confession. You are telling the room that somewhere inside you there is a fear that you will not be allowed to finish, a fear that what you are saying is not worth waiting for, a fear that the space you are taking up in this conversation has not truly been earned. And the room receives that confession, whether you intended to send it or not. Because authority is not just in what you say, it is in how your body delivers it. The great philosopher Aristotle, who studied the art of persuasion and rhetoric more systematically than almost any thinker in human civilization, understood this with complete clarity. He said that a room is silenced not by the man who speaks the most, but by the man who speaks with the most precision. Precision is not about using complicated language. It is not about crafting perfect sentences before you speak. It is not about sounding educated or impressive or deliberately mysterious. It is about stripping everything away that does not serve the point. The filler words, the verbal tics, the unnecessary qualifications, the repetition that adds length without adding weight, the apologies at the beginning of statements that should need no apology. Every is a crack in your foundation. Every you know is a signal that you are not sure of what you were about to say. Every I mean or sort of or kind of is a small but measurable reduction in the authority of whatever comes after it. Strip them out. Not all at once, not perfect.